Now, most of us find it hard to find meaning in life with so many options in today's society, with a lot of pressure and demand to find the balance and purpose in life. It seems a lot of us don't know what to do with our lives because there's so many choices along the way. Today's guest is Gardener of the Year, Matthew Symonds, and Matthew is going to be chatting to us about how he found his meaning through gardening. He is the UK's B&Q Gardener of the Year 2023 for this stunning urban garden. So Matthew, thank you for letting us into what I can describe as a little piece of paradise.
Thank you. You're welcome. It's nice to have you here.
So tell us, how does it feel to be crowned the UK Gardener of the Year?
It's a little bit surreal, but it's very nice. I'm particularly pleased that it's been recognition for someone with a small garden, because a lot of people only have a small space, so it shows that you can do lots of great things in not very much room.
Absolutely, and obviously, especially I think urban, there's a lot more urban gardens, and you've certainly brought it to life, and we can see how special this is. And tell us, what do you think makes your space so unique and different?
Well, I think it's having lots and lots of plants is the key, and showing that you can have lots of plants at different levels. So you can have them quite low in pots, you can have shrubs, and you can have tall trees and really large plants like a bamboo in a small space. And what it does is it really kind of envelopes you. It kind of gives you a green hug. It kind of surrounds you. So you can sit here and you feel like you're almost in a jungle in the city.
Absolutely, and I think actually quite a haven, as I said earlier. It does feel like a little bit of a sanctuary and quite a nice sort of wellness space, quite relaxing. You know, even though you've got houses sort of either side of you, and I love that.
Yeah, especially in the summer when it's hot and you come into this space and all of the greenery just makes it feel a little bit cooler and a little bit calmer, and it's just good for the soul.
And actually that brings me on to my next question. I can imagine waking up in the morning, sort of coming out and having breakfast, sitting out here being quite a lovely thing to do. Tell us, aside from obviously your gardening, what sort of things do you like to do sort of for your morning routine?
Okay, so I always start with a coffee, and it normally means taking the dog out for a wee as well. So that's always important. But
I know that one.
Once that's done, it is definitely a place to sit in the quiet and just have a moment before the day starts, before you've got to do your work meetings and your emails, and looking at the plants and just seeing what's changed, because things do change all the time. Different flowers come out or leaves have unfurled, and it's just a really nice moment to pause.
So what has brought you to this moment in your life, this place in your journey? And what do you think contributes to your success?
So I'm not a trained gardener. I haven't ever studied plants or how to grow things, but I found that having your hands in the soil is a really nice way to de-stress, just to ground yourself literally, and to kind of keep yourself level-headed when life is so busy and life is so hectic. It's a moment for myself, and it just gives me so much pleasure.
And it really shows, I have to say. There's so much sort of personality and inspiration in this garden. Do you have any memories or sort of childhood things that stick out that helped with your inspiration, do you think, with your gardening?
So I was thinking about this recently, and my nan's garden was my kind of earliest memory of a garden. And I remember kind of snapping the snapdragon flowers as a child and smelling her roses. And she used to, she'd have a big rhubarb patch at the bottom of the garden, and she'd break off a stalk, give us a bowl of sugar, and we used to dip the rhubarb in and eat the rhubarb with the sugar. I can't imagine many kids would settle for that nowadays, but it kept us quiet for quite a long time. So I think that's my first sort of inspiration of a gardener. And then my mum, actually, she wasn't a gardener herself, but we had a small garden with a bit of grass and a patio, and it's where we played. And then once we grew up, she decided she was going to create a garden. And my dad said, "Oh, I'll eat my hat if you grow anything in that." Well, he could have eaten lots of hats because she grew a lovely cottage garden, and it was quite small. It was a little bit bigger than this space, but she was really creative as well. So she didn't have room for a greenhouse, but she bought herself an old telephone box, and that was her greenhouse. She had it craned in over the garden fence and stuck in the bottom of the garden. So I suppose those are the two kind of key influences from my childhood that have kind of carried me onto my gardening journey.
I love that. And I think and it's funny when you say like little quirky things like the telephone box and using sort of resources and putting them into your garden. I know you've got a water butt here, haven't you? And you're quite resourceful with that.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to be mindful of saving water and the environment and not using the resources. And so there's a couple of tips that I use in my garden to keep watering to a minimum. So having lots of plants crammed together, actually it seems like you'd probably have to spend hours watering, but actually they create a little microclimate. They kind of create that kind of coolness, and you feel it is cooler, and it means they don't lose so much water, and so they don't need watering so much. But I do have water butts as well. I have one tucked away under the deck, and I've got another one up on top, so that I can use those for watering as well.
Now obviously you've mentioned your childhood. Are there any parts of your life that sort of bring you inspiration that aren't related to your garden?
Well, I get inspiration from everywhere. I'm a bit nosy, so I like to look at what other people are growing. So I am forever taking photographs of people's gardens and getting inspiration from streets around where I am as well, because there's lots of small gardens and I can borrow ideas and take them for myself or share them with other people. So people probably think I'm a bit weird taking photographs of their front gardens and things, but it's a really great way for me to kind of get ideas and things that I can do next, because you're always thinking of something different to do. That's the problem with being into, when you get the gardening bug, is that you can't stop and you just always want to do something else.
And I know obviously you work a lot on the waterways, so do you find inspiration along the way, sort of at different canals and etc.?
Yeah, I'm always amazed when I'm out walking on canal towpaths and you see boats, because you don't actually need a garden to grow things. There are some amazing boats with little miniature gardens created in the bow or at the stern or on the roof. It's amazing. I've just taken pictures and thought, wow, that is just better than lots of gardens you see on land.
This is it. I mean, you don't even need to have really an outdoor space. You could have houseplants that just bring something to life. And I think your garden here definitely shows inspiration and how you could put that anywhere, really.
Absolutely. We know lots of people are struggling to get onto the housing market, so they're renting or living at home, and you can create a garden indoors. It's amazing what you can do with just some shelves or some hanging pots or baskets, and you can create just an indoor garden. And the benefit of that is you get to enjoy it whatever the weather all year round, and it kind of improves the air quality in your house as well.
And actually, speaking of plants indoors or outdoors, now obviously there are certain, how can I say, mythical things about people say talking to plants help them grow. Do you talk to your plants yourself? Or do you recommend anything specific?
I think I talk to the frog that sits in the pond rather than the plants. But I think what I find is when I'm in the garden, I'm connected to people who've either given me plants as a gift or people who've taught me about different plants. So I find it does bring me close to people when I'm in the garden. It's my happy place. My mum or my nan, who are my inspirations, I feel closer to them when I'm in the garden than I do anywhere else.
Now, obviously, gardens can create a lot of inspiration and imagination as well, which you've definitely brought to life already today. But have you heard of the story The Little Prince before?
I have heard of the story, yes.
Had to bring that up because obviously it's all about having that one thing that you grow that is really meaningful to you. So I know you've got some amazing trees and plants here in your garden, but maybe not even what you've got here, but what one thing would you grow or have on your planet if it was the one thing that you could have?
I think the answer, and it's a little bit of a cheat because it's lots of things in one, which is I'd go for spring bulbs, because they are amazing. They come in their own little packet and they kind of hidden the promise that is in that bulb. but the way they poke up through the harsh weather in the winter and the spring and then burst into life, and it's sort of beckoning of the new season, I think they are just the best thing. So a garden full of spring bulbs would definitely be my top choice.
Perfect. And there are some pollinators actually in there as well.
Yeah, you can get some really nice open spring bulbs, tulips that really open up, and daffodils and crocus that will provide early nectar for bugs and bees as well.
I love that. Lovely idea. And I couldn't agree more. There's nothing better than a bit of colour in our lives. So we're talking imagination. Obviously, you just said about having a lot of colour if you were a little prince on your own planet. But I'm going to go a little bit more surreal here. Very much like the adaptation of The Weird and Wonderful World of Timothy, which was a Disney film. If you were to be a plant yourself, what would you be and why?
Well, that's a difficult one. I guess I'm a Leo, so I do like a lot of sun and a lot of attention. So I'm going to go down that avenue, and I think I'd choose to be a rose, because you get a lot of sun, you get fed really well as a rose, you need lots of food, and you produce beautiful perfume and scent, and because of those things you get lots of attention, and Leos like attention. So I'd be a rose, I think.
I'd almost go with you on that. I'm a Sagittarius, so I think I totally agree. And there's a lot to be said in a rose, which is very much what the Little Prince actually grows as well. So obviously the phrase meaning love is a garden. What does that mean to you?
Well, for me, I think it's a space to share and be with people, because it is a lovely thing to share your garden, to have people around, to sit and chat and have food and just have a really nice time together in your garden. It's lovely that people can appreciate your work as well, because although I get a lot of pleasure from it, there's nothing quite like the pleasure you get from seeing other people enjoy your gardening work.
And on the back of that, do you have a lot of guests round? I know you mentioned earlier you've actually got 3 trees here that were bought for you by friends for a significant birthday, which I think is lovely. Do they sort of also sort of help you out, and they love coming and visiting your garden as well then?
Yeah, I love having people round and sharing the space with them. Yeah, my friends, they clubbed together and bought me the trees for my 30th birthday, so it's like a bit of them is in the garden growing here. So it is nice to share it with them and to think that they've been part of this creation.
And you've given inspiration as well, I believe, to one of the judges for the B&Q Gardener of the Year, Mr. Fred, maitre d' extraordinaire on TV. I believe he was saying that he wants to take some sort of tips and tricks and hacks away from your garden because it's inspired him, which is amazing. And I can imagine you get lots of people that say the same. So I actually want to know, and I'm guessing everyone else out there wants to know, any specific tips and advice? You've already given us a little bit already in terms of obviously having your water butts and how you've created a really nice sort of freshness in the air. But any tips on planting or anything you'd give to any enthusiastic gardeners out there?
Well, I guess the first tip is grow what you love, because that's what makes it your garden and special. But secondly, particularly if you've got a small garden, my advice would be to think big, because actually, although it's counterintuitive and you think you can't get a lot in a small space, actually you can go upwards with trees or climbers or a big statement plant. It will make your garden feel bigger. So that would be my top tip for people. But yeah, definitely grow things that you love, because they're going to bring you pleasure.
I love that. And I expect for people that find they're not good because their plants seem to die really easily. Actually, if it's something you really want to grow, you're going to nurture it more, right?
Yes, it's true, although I will confess I've probably killed as many plants as I've kept alive. So don't worry about that either, because if something doesn't like growing in your garden or sadly passes on, think of it as an opportunity to try something else.
Yeah, and I think if you don't try, you don't know, do you?
Absolutely. Give it a go. You've got nothing to lose.
So how do you think gardening has given you meaning in life?
It's given me confidence, because I've been growing things now for 30 years, and I've learned that, you can grow amazing things in different spaces, in challenging spaces, and it given me that sort of confidence to be able to do things which I've then been able to take out into life as well. I think I've succeeded in this. I can succeed in other things as well. So it definitely helps in that respect.
And I think that's great, because you see things grow around you, then you're going to grow in your own way. And that's a really, really good point. My final question is, what do you think gardening has taught you over the years? I believe it's been 20 years you've been in this garden and brought it to this wonderful sanctuary that we have. What do you think it's taught you in life in general?
I think the main message is that it's taught me you need to have some time for yourself. You need to do something that's good for you, that makes you feel good, that improves your well-being, and the garden definitely does that for me. So give yourself some time, be kind to yourself.
And plants do give so much back. Thank you, Matthew, so much for joining us and for allowing us into your piece of paradise.
Thank you for coming.